Hello, and welcome to Astronomy Daily. I'm Anna.
And I'm Avery. It's Wednesday, February 25th, 2026, and you are listening to Season 5, Episode 48.
Big show today. NASA's moon rocket is on the move again. James Webb has achieved a genuine first in a history of astronomy. And we're going to talk about a world out there that is becoming increasingly difficult to explain without considering the word life.
Plus, the sun is taking a quiet day for the first time in years. There's some grippy new detail from China's incredible space emergency last year, and we close with something that might just make you want to send a letter.
All that coming right up. Let's get into it.
We start with an update on a story we've been following closely all week. And today there's a genuinely new angle that caught a lot of people off guard.
Right. So Artemis II. As of this morning, the enormous Space Launch System rocket and the Orion spacecraft have physically begun their 4-mile journey from Launch Pad 39B back to the Vehicle Assembly Building at Kennedy Space Center. That rollback started around 9 a.m. Eastern Time and could take up to 12 hours.
The reason, as we've covered, is a helium flow interruption in the rocket's upper stage. Helium is critical. It pressurizes the propellant tanks. Without that working perfectly, you cannot fly. March is now completely off the table. The next realistic opportunity opens on April 1st.
But here's what's new today, and it's a bit of a talking point. Last night, the 4 Artemis II crew members, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen, they were sitting in the gallery at the U.S. Capitol for President Trump's State of the Union. They were guests of House Speaker Mike Johnson.
And the speech ran for nearly 2 hours. The president praised the Space Force extensively. He called it, quote, his baby. But he made no mention of the 4 astronauts sitting right there in the room, and no mention of the Artemis program at all.
Which was noticed. These are the first people who will travel beyond low Earth orbit since the Apollo era. And they were in the chamber. Some in the space community found the omission quite striking.
The crew have now been released from their pre-launch quarantine since there's no imminent launch. NASA has said they'll hold a media briefing in the coming days to lay out the path forward. For now, April 1st is the earliest the mission could fly, pending successful repairs, a likely second wet dress rehearsal, and a clean flight readiness review.
We will absolutely keep you updated as this develops. The mission itself is still on. It's just going to take a bit longer.
This story has still got a long way to go, methinks.
Now, this next story is a genuine landmark in astronomy, something researchers have been waiting years for.
It has to do with supernovae, those spectacular explosions that mark the deaths of massive stars. Astronomers have long wanted to look back at archival images after a supernova occurs and find the star that caused it, the so-called progenitor star. But for many of the most massive stars, they just weren't there. They seem to be missing.
Well, now we know why, and it's thanks to James Webb. On June 29th last year, an automated sky survey detected a new supernova in a galaxy called NGC 1637, about 40 million light years away. The explosion was designated 2025 PHT, and a team at Northwestern University immediately did something clever. Instead of pointing their telescopes at the new supernova, they went to the archives, to images Webb had already taken of that same galaxy.
And there it was, a single red supergiant star sitting exactly where the supernova now shines. This is the first published detection of a supernova progenitor by the James Webb Telescope ever.
And here's the key thing. Hubble couldn't see it. The star was completely invisible in Hubble images. It was surrounded by so much dust that shorter wavelengths of light were blocked entirely. Only Webb's infrared instruments could pierce that veil.
Lead author Charlie Kilpatrick from Northwestern described it as, quote, the reddest, most dusty red supergiant we've seen explode as a supernova. And there was another surprise, the dust composition. They expected silicate-rich dust, the kind astronomers usually find. Instead, it was carbon-rich. The team thinks that carbon may have been dredged up from deep inside the star in its final moments before death.
This has direct implications for what's called the mystery of the missing red supergiants. Theory predicts these massive stars should be easy to spot before they explode, they should be bright and luminous. But historically, they've often not shown up in pre-supernova images at all. Now we have a compelling answer. They're there, they're just hidden in dust.
The findings are published in the Astrophysical Journal Letters. The team is now looking for similar dusty red supergiants that might be the next to explode. And Webb's successor missions, including the upcoming Nancy Grace Roman's telescope, should help that search enormously.
A beautiful piece of detective work.
From stellar deaths to potential life, because our next story is one that keeps getting more interesting every time new data comes in. The exoplanet K2-18b.
If you've been following exoplanet science over the last couple of years, you'll know this name. K2-18b is located 124 light-years away in the constellation Leo, sitting squarely in the habitable zone of its red dwarf host star, and James Webb has been staring at it.
What Webb found was an atmosphere rich in both carbon dioxide and methane. That chemical combination is significant. It points strongly towards what astronomers call a Hycean world. The idea is a planet with a warm, liquid water ocean beneath a thick hydrogen-rich atmosphere.
And the intrigue doesn't stop there. Earlier analyses of K2-18b's atmosphere had also hinted at possible traces of dimethyl sulfide, a molecule that, on Earth, is produced almost exclusively by marine life. Now, that hasn't been confirmed, and scientists are appropriately cautious. There are non-biological explanations being explored.
But the ongoing analysis of Webb data is continuing to add layers to the story. The carbon dioxide and methane combination is precisely what you'd expect if there were a liquid ocean beneath that atmosphere. The current focus is whether those chemical signatures could have a biological origin, and that's one of the most consequential questions in all of science.
K2-18b is one of the most watched targets in astrobiology right now, and with Webb continuing to accumulate data, we should expect more updates in the months ahead. Avery, if it turns out there is life on K2-18b,
then everything changes. That's all I'll say. Okay, something a little different now. A story about our own sun behaving unusually quietly.
On February 22nd, the sun's Earth-facing disk went completely spotless for the first time in 1,355 days. That ends a streak stretching all the way back to June 8th of 2022. For nearly 4 years, you could look at the sun on any given day and find at least one active sunspot region. Not anymore, for a few days at least.
Sunspots are regions of intense magnetic activity on the solar surface, and they're the source of solar flares and the coronal mass ejections that can send charged particles hurtling toward Earth. We are in solar cycle 25, which peaked in October 2024 with a sunspot count significantly higher than scientists initially predicted.
Here's a fun wrinkle. While Earth was looking at a blank sun, NASA's Perseverance rover on Mars had a different view. From the Martian surface, Perseverance could see sunspot groups blazing away on the far side of the sun, invisible to us here on Earth, but clearly visible from Mars's position in the solar system.
The spotless period appears to have lasted about 2 to 3 days before a new active region began emerging around February 24th. So the sun isn't shutting down, it's just having a quiet moment. Solar activity isn't expected to reach its next minimum until around 2030. But this little pause is a signal that solar cycle 25 is beginning its long, slow wind down from that October 2024 peak.
For listeners who love aurora hunting, the good news is there's still plenty of solar activity ahead. But the best years of this cycle are behind us now.
Now to a story that we've touched on before, but which has taken on fascinating new depth this week, with the Shenzhou 20 astronauts speaking out in remarkable detail about last year's in-orbit emergency, China's first ever human spaceflight crisis.
Just to recap the situation, China's Shenzhou 20 crew, Commander Chen Dong, along with Chen Xiangrui and Wang Ye, launched in April 2025 for what was supposed to be a standard 6-month mission to the Tiangong space station. During pre-return checks on the day before they were supposed to come home, Commander Chen went to inspect the return capsule.
And he spotted something on the viewport window, something triangular. His first thought, and he shared this in a new interview with Chinese state broadcaster CCTV, was that a small leaf had somehow stuck to the outside of the glass.
And then, as he told it, he quickly realized that couldn't happen because they were in space.
What he was actually seeing was a crack, a triangular scar roughly 2 centimeters long in the outer layer of the 3-layer viewport window, most likely caused by a debris strike. The crew used a pen-shaped microscope to confirm the damage, took photos immediately, and transmitted everything to the ground.
The decision that followed was extraordinary. The crew could not safely return in their own spacecraft. Instead, they transferred to the Shenzhou 21 vehicle that had just arrived days earlier, carrying their relief crew. An uncrewed Shenzhou 22 was then emergency launched, carrying a porthole repair device. The whole response, from finding the crack to the crew's safe return to Earth, took just over 20 days.
And the damaged Shenzhou 20 capsule? It was eventually brought back to Earth uncrewed on January 19th of this year, after spending 270 days in orbit, 90 days longer than planned. It survived re-entry, which itself was a significant engineering achievement.
Commander Chen Dong summed it up beautifully. The unexpected window cracks ultimately became a precious testament to the concerted efforts and shared commitment for safety between our two crews and all ground-based space personnel.
A genuinely remarkable chapter in human spaceflight. The space debris problem is real, and this story illustrates exactly why it matters.
And finally, something a little lighter to close the show. Avery, have you ever wanted to send a letter that was also technically a window to the cosmos?
I feel like that's a rhetorical question, but yes, obviously.
Well, the U.S. Postal Service has you covered. Yesterday, February 24th, the USPS officially issued 2 brand new priority mail stamps, both featuring images from the James Webb Space Telescope.
The first is the Priority Mail Stamp, priced at $11.95, and it features the Crab Nebula, the spectacular remnant of a star that exploded in the constellation Taurus about 6,500 light-years away. Webb captured it in the infrared, revealing structural details that have never been seen before.
The second is the Priority Mail Express stamp at $33.25, and this one is a real showpiece. It's a composite image called Galaxy Pair, 2 interacting spiral galaxies, IC 2163 and NGC 2207, located about 80 million light-years away. The image combines Webb and Hubble data across infrared, visible, and ultraviolet wavelengths. It is genuinely stunning.
Kansas City, Missouri was the official city of issue, though there was no public ceremony. And here's a lovely detail for collectors. You have until June 24th to send your stamps in for a first day of issue postmark. The Postal Service will even apply the postmark for free up to 50 envelopes.
And this is actually the 4th consecutive year the USPS has used Webb imagery on priority mail stamps. In 2022, it was a forever stamp featuring a rendering of the telescope itself. In 2024 and 2025, the Pillars of Creation featured. Now, the Crab Nebula and a Galaxy Pair. Webb is becoming something of an annual tradition at the post office.
Which, when you think about it, is rather wonderful. A space telescope that cost $10 billion and took 30 years to build is now sitting in people's junk drawers next to the scissors and the tape.
That is the most poetic thing you have ever said on this podcast.
I have my moments.
And that is Astronomy Daily for Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. What a show! Rollbacks, red supergiants, possible ocean worlds, a quiet sun, space debris emergencies, and commemorative postage.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please do leave us a review wherever you listen. It makes a genuine difference. And you can find us at astronomydaily.io and on social media at AstroDailyPod.
For Avery, I'm Anna. Stay curious, keep looking up, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Clear skies, everyone.